Good evening. Thank you for watching our Current Affairs program in English, where we'll be speaking with Dr. Adrian Delia. Our broadcast is being held at the Parliament of Malta. Thank you very much, Dr. Delia, for agreeing to speak with us during our Current Affairs briefing in English. I'd like to start by speaking about mental health services in Malta.
Let me be clear on this. Most people make a differentiation between health and mental health. WHO, the World Health Organization, actually defines health as including mental health, not as being a separate subject. And that is something that even at logical dialogue negotiation level, we need to understand immediately, because if we don't do that, we immediately start relegating mental health to being like lesser than normal health.
Yes.
So if somebody has an ailment, an illness, which is of the body without being a mental issue, that is given at least logical priority. Mm-hmm. But then if it's mental health, as if we want but naraw, then
there's
we'll
always
see later.
a stigma. There's always been a stigma.
As I'll come to that. But if we recognize that, then we need to elevate the issues that we have for national discussion, for priority, and for immediate investment. Why? I, as one of the representatives of the opposition, form part of what is called il-Kumitat tal-Soċjal u Saħħa, parliamentary committees which deal with these two, the social issues and health issues as one block, and therefore we are exposed to the discussions going on in the country relative to these subjects. Few months back, we had the Commissioner of Mental Health who gave us this very interesting presentation. I say interesting because, unfortunately, the news contained therein is not good news at all. Every single graph, every single data point that we were appraised of was showing an increase in mental health issues. To be fair, this is happening also overseas, and WHO is describing mental health as being now at the level of pandemic.
And what's the reason for this increase, in your opinion?
What is, for example, interesting is, as the Western, let's call it the Western world, develops, mental health issues increase. Ironically, in the lesser developed countries, there is not such an increase. So it could be related to tensions, it could be related to lifestyle, it could be related to the fast development of economic growth. But also the recognition of ailments, problems that before we didn't even, let's talk about kids, for example. I don't recall when I was a kid that we used to have LSEs, or we used to have the professional ability to say that these children have this problem or require this kind of service or help or assistance, etc. So the faster that science develops, the more aware we become of issues related to mental health. But my problem is that government seems, although on paper, in conferences, in presentations, he does give it mention, but then when we see that, for example, we were promised a new mental health hospital. 4 years, not the opposition was asking for, government was actually in its manifestos, in its promises, electoral promises, saying that's going to be done. All of a sudden this year we hear it's not going to be done. Period. It's just not going to be done. Not going to be done at a later stage, or going to be done at a different location, not going to be done.
And the reason?
The reason is because he said now there's going to be a ward in Mater Dei, which is going to cater for the service.
Which is already overcrowded.
Which is already overcrowded. When we have the numbers which are literally flying off the charts, in the meantime, you have Mount Carmel, which is a unique building if you're looking at it from the historical perspective, but absolutely inept if you're looking at what it should be giving us insofar as service in the modern era. Government made interventions. Last media news on that was that millions were spent on something that now, all of a sudden, in a debate with me, ironically, the health minister said, listen, now this is going to be turned into an old people's home. So spending millions investing in something and then saying that it's not going to happen, but something else is going to happen. Mental health doesn't wait for investment. People who are suffering, over and above the stigma that dutifully you mentioned yourself, this is something that is, in a lot of scenarios, not even visible. But people are suffering. And children are suffering. And when you see how even not only the numbers are going up, but the age groups are now going down. So we usually would see between 30 to 50 as an age bracket where there were most issues related to mental health issues. Now you have going down younger people, teenagers, children, and it continues and continues. What I wish to do from the opposition, together with various NGOs which are really doing their best with their limited resources, is to put this on top of the national agenda. We have, going by WHO statistics, a 25% minimum infliction across the board. So out of every 4 people, 1 person is suffering out of some kind of mental health issue. That is a lot. And in my mind, we should be giving priority to that.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think the government will solve the problem about the lack of health services?
From my side, I'm not feeling that government is doing enough. We are prepared as opposition, together with my colleagues, and I work very closely with Ian Vassalahaji on this sector, and he came up with propositions, and we're pushing. Unfortunately today, I hate to say this, but it sounds partisan, but it is. Government is embroiled as a party now, not as government, but as Labour Party in government, is embroiled in a lot of internal conflict. That is having a detrimental effect in the ability to take immediate action, take timely action, and actually give us direction, vision. Tell us, listen, we have a problem. At least we recognize. Then, in the next 5 years, this is going to happen. In the next 10 years, this is going to happen. In the meantime, we're going to help in this way, in this way. It's not happening.
So there are no plans, that's what you're saying. There are no plans.
All the plans that there are management by crisis directed.
At the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned old people's homes. Can we touch on that?
Sadly, I have to start by doing some political criticism. Whilst discussing the subject matter of the problems in the health sector, including of the increased numbers that our professionals need to handle, the minister willingly or unwittingly said, you know what the problem is? That people are living longer. That's the problem. So we have science, we have progress, which, thank God, is allowing our relatives, our family, our elderly to live longer. That should be a blessing, not the problem, but that's what he said. As a fact, people are living longer. The 80-year-olds now would be requiring old people's houses, homes, whatever you wish to call them, and the numbers are increasing. Government is again not catering for that. This is not something that happens overnight. You don't turn 80 overnight. You have been 80 years in the making to turn 80. So how come there is around 1,800, 1,900 people waiting to find a home? Can't government do more? We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about incentivizing the private sector to invest more. We don't get another million tourists, but we build structures, we build homes, we build environments even for our elderly who we love, who still have a lot to give back to society, irrespective of their age, whether it's helping with advice, whether it's sharing their history, their knowledge, their abilities, whether it's being of moral support to our younger generations. That's how I would look at our elderly, not calling them a problem. And I've spoken to people in the industry, given the right incentives, given the right vision, motivation, even a nod where the country wants to go, there are people who can be engaged in order to provide at a faster rate the accommodations, the housings, the units that we need. But we cannot have our elderly coming of age and scared that at the point in time that they can't take care of themselves, they have nowhere to go. That's the situation. People coming into the age where they can't take care of themselves, and scared, without a certainty, of course, that they have nowhere to go.
And it boils down to a lack of planning again. That's what is.
Because this is something that you can predict. These are numbers that are there. I can tell you from today how many 8-year-olds I'm going to have in 10 years' time. It's data, it's statistics, it's numbers that we have at the tip of our fingers. An old Chinese proverb says, the society that is not able to take care of its elderly is a society rotten at its core. And that is a very strong message. We can never look at our elderly as a problem, but as a treasure, and we need to treat them with dignity, with respect, and make them, or give them at least the comfort that coming to an age where they cannot take care of themselves, society, the country, the state will be able to provide for them.
Thank you very much, Dr. D'Elia, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us tonight and for watching our current affairs briefing in English from the Room of the Opposition from the Parliament of Malta. I was speaking with Dr. Adrian D'Elia. I'm Leah Hogg for Net TV.